Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Public Works Committee meeting for Tuesday, May 30th, 2017. First order of business is roll call and determination of quorum. Andrea, when you are ready.
Doyle?
Here.
Solomon? Here. Drew? Here. Nordstrom? Here. Estes? We have quorum.
Thank you. Next order of business is to adopt the agenda. Do I have any changes, additions?
Move to adopt. Second.
Motion to adopt by Nordstrom, second by Solomon. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Agenda is adopted. Now is the time for general public comment, which is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue not limited to items on the agenda. Action, however, will not be taken at this meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement thereon by unanimous vote of the aldermen present. I have no general public comment forms, but I understand Alderman Nordstrom would like to be the general public for just a moment and make an announcement. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to update the group and the people that are listening to us that the ICPC folks really appreciated all the hard work that the city staff, volunteers, everybody that came together to put the ICPC part together from the volunteer side were just noted as first class. They really appreciated the skill level that everyone showed. And also that Dick and Nancy Gowan did a wonderful job leading this and facilitating it. And Dick sent out a very nice letter to everyone that did the volunteer part of it. So I just wanted to say thanks to all the people that participated as volunteers and being really showing off Rapid City and the skills that we have here in Rapid City. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Nordstrom. Well, moving on to the consent items 1 through 18. I'll open public comment and close public comment, seeing that my speaker request forms are actually for non-consent items. Would any alderman like to pull an item for separate consideration? Alderman Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I pull item number 9, please?
Yes, sir. Any others? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the balance.
Motion to adopt the balance.
A motion by Drew and a second by Nordstrom to approve consent items 1 through 18 with the exception of number 9. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're now on to item number 9, which is an agreement allowing the City of Rapid City to provide water service to certain property within the Rapid Valley Sanitary District. Alderman Solomon, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 9, if I can get a second and retain the floor. May I ask a question to Dale Tech, our Public Works Director, please? Dale, on number 9, we're talking about an agreement for the City of Rapid City to provide water service to certain properties in the Rapid Valley Sanitary District. So being that these are out of city limits, is this a typical practice for us to allow non-residents to tap into our water system?
As part of the East Rapid City water expansion, city took a water line out to the airport, another one to make a loop. The City Council approved a service area that extended out that direction. So Council has authorized service outside of city limits. With that being said, this area within the Rapid Valley Sanitary District, they don't have a water main anywhere near the location of these properties. The city has a water main that fronts the property, so it just makes good sense for the citizens that live out there to be able to utilize water. I believe some of them have difficulties with getting good water in their shallow wells that they have out there. I believe the initial term of this agreement is 5 years, so in Rapid Valley, if they do have a project to get water out there, then they can switch service to the district that they belong. If it doesn't happen within 5 years, it's renewable after that. So it just makes good sense to be able to do this for those folks out there. They'll be paying the appropriate rates plus a surcharge, which was part of the funding package for the extension of water mains out there to begin with. So it just makes sense all the way around.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderwoman Drew, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, some questions for Dale, please.
Certainly.
On this one, so as I understood it, you say select properties, there are only 3 properties out there that this affects, or was I reading that correctly?
There's a total of 6 properties that are,
okay.
I believe, covered by this agreement.
Okay, and is there a chance of developments out there? Is this something that will expand in that area, or is this just a one-time deal for those properties?
This is just a one-time deal for these properties. Any additional properties that come forward, we'd have to go through the same vetting process for the agreement for service. Don't anticipate a lot of additional development in that area, at least right of way. Certainly in the future, we need the other legs of the stool. We need sanitary sewer, drainage facilities, as well as transportation systems out there as well.
And up to this time, they've just been using the Rapid Valley Water District, is that correct? Or
No,
sanitation district?
they've been on private wells.
Oh, they have?
They don't
Okay.
have any service from Rapid Valley. They just exist or are located in the district boundary. And much like the city of Rapid City's city limits, we don't have water mains to every acre of property that's within the city limits, and it's the same condition with Rapid Valley Sanitary District. They can't provide these folks service because they don't have infrastructure anywhere near them.
Okay, all right, thank you. I yield.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed, same sign. Item number 9 passes. Brings us to the end of the consent calendar. We are on non-consent items 19 and 20. You see, I do have 2 speaker request forms, both from Dane Boomsma. Hi, if you'd approach the podium. And I'll just let you go ahead and speak on both of them back to back.
Dane Boomsma, item 19 has to do with the Black Hills Home Builders Association parking lot expansion to the east of its current building. The sidewalk variance was applied along West Chicago because the DOT is planning. Staff agreed that it would not make sense for us to do that at this time. The sidewalk extension to the north or to the south, sorry, on our east property line, which connects to the property to the south of us, the sidewalk, there's one small section of sidewalk on that property to the south of us. Past their approach, there's no more sidewalk. Sidewalk was just hit and miss in that neighborhood. So really our position is we're asking for it, but we probably have a neutral position just because it is hit and miss, and that's not the big, majority part of the sidewalk when concerning the home builders expansion. So really that's all I have for comments on item 19.
19, okay.
Any
And then
questions on that?
20? When we get to that item,
Okay.
I'm sure you'll stand
Thank
by
you.
for questions.
Okay, item number 20. So I own a 40-acre parcel along Dias Avenue. We all know that has been a hot area for industrial development with what's going on in the county and all of that. Not only that, but I know there were previous developers that came forward through the city on some county property. Bottom line is that is the next spot of growth for industrial area in that area. The city has put in, I don't remember, $30 million in Seeger and Dias Avenue. And so we have a lot of potential for growth in that area. I have an immediate need for growth in that area, and that's why I'm bringing forward the plat that I submitted. The city has denied the exceptions to improve Dias Avenue. There's no private developer, whether it's myself or another one along Dias Avenue, that can pay for Dias Avenue exclusively on their own. The development won't happen just because of the cost involved in improving Dias Avenue. There's some numerous issues when developing Dias Avenue. I have hired KTM, and James is here for questions if we need to. I don't own the entire portion from the improved part of Dias north of Seeger. There's about a 300-foot gap that I don't own. So if I were to improve even the stuff adjacent to my property, there would be a 300-foot section in the middle, which KTM hasn't done a full design, but in preliminary look at it is nearly impossible to do because the existing road's a rural section where the drainage is in the ditches, where the new section is the drainage is in the gutters, and so the topography of the roads is completely different. So we'd be going from an improved road to a 300-foot section of unimproved road to more improved road that it'd be nearly impossible to do just from a practicality standpoint. There are a couple instances in the city limits that as of recently that the exceptions have been granted, and a couple of those examples, one is up in Auburn Hills along Haynes Avenue. Doik LLC, Joe Moose Group, platted a 4-acre lot adjacent to Haynes Avenue. The exceptions were granted not to improve Haynes Avenue. They had to provide a water main. I have water and sewer mains to my property. The other one was South Valley Drive that I believe it was Dream Design proposed, and they were granted the exceptions on South Valley Drive. Regardless of that, I'm not here saying I don't want to do it because I want somebody else to pay for it. Bottom line is we have an area for growth that so far has been limited because of this Dias Avenue improvement project. And I think we just need to look outside of a private developer paying for that, because that main arterial road will not be feasible for anybody, private developer, to pay for exclusively. So we just need to be looking at this as a city and as developers. We need to be looking at this project a lot harder than I think we have, because we've missed opportunity to date to get that road built and paid for. As we all know, WL Plastics and Wausau is up there, and the hundreds of thousands of dollars of tax dollars that they've been paying that we could have been taking advantage of for this road improvement to continue growth. The project I'm proposing only affects the 40 acres that I have, but what we've proposed is we're putting the street to the east where it accesses quite a few acres, probably 100 or more acres that's out of the floodplain right now for more industrial development. So stopping my project stops a lot of future projects as well because of the Dias Avenue improvements. One other thing I'll point out is the city did plat an H lot on Dias Avenue. Just prior to me purchasing the property I have, there's an H lot where they built the water metering facility, and no improvements were done when the city platted that lot. Not only that, the city was permitted to put a approach in within 25 feet of my approach. When I applied for my approach permits, I had to make sure I had 150-foot spacing between approaches. That didn't apply to the city. We have two approaches right next to each other now when the city platted that lot, and no improvements made on Dias Avenue. So yeah, I'm really here open for discussions as far as how can we continue to move forward. Obviously I want to develop my property, but there has to be some way, and there's a lot of development. I mean, in the immediate future, I know I've got about $3 million worth of taxable projects that I'm going to be bringing on board with this plat I'm bringing forward. And that's just those immediate. That's not even all the lots that I'm platting. That's just the buildings that I know that are going to be going in there. And so instead of waiting like we have on Wausau and WL Plastics, which if we're forced to develop Dias, what's going to happen is exactly what happened to Wausau and WL, and that's going to be, everything's going to be 40-acre parcels because it's not feasible to put Dias Avenue in on our own. So that's going to happen across the road in the county like it just did with the asphalt plant. They're on a 40-acre parcel, so they have no requirement for Dias Avenue. That's another, a good value of property that they're going to be establishing there, that we're not taking that money to improve the road that we need to. So I kind of feel like I'm coming in at the after WL and Wausau was there, which has obviously created a lot of truck traffic, and now we've got to improve it. Well, this needs to be a collective effort, in my opinion, and I'm willing to make it a collective effort. I'm not asking the city to do it for me. I'm saying let's do this now instead of all of these improvements being made and we can't take advantage of those tax dollars, whether that's through an increment district or a TIF to put the project in. Whatever it is, we need to have these discussions now so that we can continue to grow to the north.
Okay, I appreciate your comments and your ideas. We're going to stick to just the item on the agenda when we get to that, and I'm sure there are going to be questions. And then also, I would want to know if you brought any supporting visuals or anything.
So, well,
I need to put up on the screen when we get to those items.
You guys have on there the preliminary plat.
Yes.
So
if there's a lot of times there are things that the applicant will bring. Okay.
So I have nothing additional other than the preliminary plat.
All right. Thank you, sir. I will now close public comment. Move on to item number 19, which is the request from Black Hills Home Builders Association for a variance to waive the requirement to install sidewalk per city ordinance 12.08.060 along West Chicago Street and Vale Street for the property located at 3121 West Chicago Street. Go to Alderman Solomon.
I make a motion to approve the variance to waive the requirements. If I can get a second to hold the floor, please. On number 19. No? All right, I'll hold the floor. I'll explain why I'm approving the variance to waive is It's upholding staff's recommendation, because the South Dakota DOT is going to do some work there anyways. They're going to put a sidewalk in. So I figure, why would we make them put a sidewalk in if it's going to be tore up again? So maybe Dale, am I misunderstanding
If I could,
your
yeah.
recommendation?
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Tech. I'll let you explain.
There's actually two parts to this request. One is for the installation of sidewalk along West Chicago Street,
Right.
which staff is saying the Department of Transportation is going to be building that sidewalk. Yes, we agree that the applicant shouldn't be required to do that. If they did, it would likely get torn out and redone with the DOT project. There's also another street right-of-way, I believe it's called the Vale Street right-of-way,
Right.
which tees into, the right-of-way tees into West Chicago, but the street doesn't connect through there. However, we believe that is an important pedestrian corridor, and staff recommends that that portion of sidewalk does get constructed. However, it'll have to wait until such time as the West Chicago Street sidewalk is built. So once again, they're not tearing it out and redoing it. So it's kind of a two-part thing. The staff recommends approval of the variance along West Chicago, but does not recommend approval of the variance along Vale Street.
And I should have worded my motion better. I want to uphold staff's recommendation, which I only gave half of it. Obviously, there was another half to that. So that's my motion on the floor.
I'll go ahead and keep that on the floor if anyone would like to second it. Okay, so I do have a second by Alderman Nordstrom.
Restated.
Motion is to uphold staff's recommendation, which is to grant the waiver, the exception along West Chicago Street, and not grant the exception request along Vale. However, internally defer the Vale Street improvements until which time the West Chicago Street improvements are put in, correct? Yes, okay. So as long as that's, okay.
I could say yes.
Any further discussion? Mr. Nordstrom, would you still like to? No? Okay, well, that's the motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. We're on to item number 20, which is an appeal of denied exception request from KTM Design Solutions on behalf of Boom Shakalaka. You just wanted me to say that on camera, huh? To waive additional pavement, curb, gutter, sidewalk, and streetlight conduits in Dias Avenue. The floor is open, lady and gentlemen. Alderwoman Drew.
I have some questions for Mr. Boomsma, is it?
Yep.
Please? Yeah. As you were talking earlier, did I hear you say that the area that you're developing, I just kind of heard this in passing, is in the floodplain or near the floodplain? What was that?
The south end of my property, if you look at that preliminary plat, there's a portion that we're leaving unplatted. That's all in the floodplain. Everything we're developing is out of the floodplain. Majority of it's out of the floodplain. Some of the lots actually go into the floodplain a little bit. What I was saying about the floodplain is to the east of where I'm developing is a huge area that is not affected by floodplain as well, that is just available for future industrial growth.
I see, okay. And the 48-acre parcels for the buildings, I guess I didn't really understand what you were talking about there, that's what most of them are being divided into now, and you want to do something different with that area, or is thinking about a housing development, or, okay, go ahead.
So to build on a parcel in that area and not plat, you maintain 40 acres. So basically, if you have an eloquent 40 acres, that can be transferred by deed. Legally, that's the smallest parcel that can be transferred without being platted. So to date, that's what the previous landowners have done to transfer that property, is sold 40 acres at a time, which is just deferred, any platting because of the requirement to improve Dias Avenue.
Okay, all right, it doesn't trigger improvements, that's what.
Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
Chairwoman Doyle just explained that to me. And then there's, just explain to me again, because I didn't look at it, so the 300-foot area in the middle is where? Okay, I'm seeing it now. It's not very big.
There's 300 feet from
Okay.
where Seeger is at and where my property starts. I don't own up to Seeger Drive.
Okay. All right, thank you, that's all I needed.
Alderman Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to direct this question to Mr. Tech.
Please.
Dale, so if I'm understanding this particular situation, part of the requirements is he would have to help develop part of Dias Avenue. Is that, beyond where we've already done work? Is that what we're asking the developer to do here?
Yes, our subdivision ordinance states that if a developer is subdividing property adjacent to right-of-way, they're required to improve that right-of-way to city standards. This is an age-old discussion about, well, it's just one half. They're just dividing on one half, so they don't have any control over, nor should they bear the expense of making those improvements on the other half of the right-of-way, opposite side of the road that they're working on. So this is typical. This has been going on here in Rapid City for decades as far as improving half roadways. We used to have warps, waiver of right to protest, which have never really been used. I think staff has recognized and has given the council advice that don't do warps. They're really not worth the paper they're written on. So this is an age-old dilemma where we've got things going on a minimally improved road. It's an old rural road section, and now we have subdivision going on out there, be it residential, industrial, whatever, that there's no mechanism other than to take a literal interpretation of our subdivision ordinance and require the developer to make improvements to those roadways.
Mr. Boomsma mentioned he'd be willing to be a part of a collective effort. Have you ever seen that happen or work out, and where we've delayed that for now, but when somebody came along to develop it, which I think it will out there with everything going on? Have you ever seen that happen and work out, and how would we approach that?
The only thing that we've done most recently, being Alderwoman Doyle's ward, is the extension of Elm Avenue. Similar situation where a developer came in, developed properties adjacent to it, was given a waiver to make those improvements, but a warp was signed. Well, subsequently that warp fell on 22 residential homes that would have to foot the bill for improvements to one half the right-of-way. The adjacent property owner was wanting to develop on the other side of the road, willing to pay their share of the cost, but didn't want to pay for the other half or the oversize of the road. The city has subsequently entered into an agreement with them to fund that, and I believe Utility Support Fund or CIP funding is going to be utilized for that when that's done. So that's not a standard. That's the first time that had ever been done. So as far as making any special agreements or trying to get out ahead of development, that hasn't really been tried or trued.
Okay, I'll yield for now. Thank you.
All right, great discussion. Alderman Nordstrom, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It seems we've had this discussion before with other properties up in this area, and we've been, or at least I've been reluctant about granting any kind of a waiver up there on this, but I'm starting to see a longer range problem, and I need to address the question to Dale Tech, please.
Certainly.
Dale, if we go ahead and give them the waiver on this, will we be eventually coming out of CIP or going to CIP for additional funding to develop this street when everything is done and it's starting to look like Seeger Drive at that point? Because that's what I'm kind of envisioning what's happening with Dias. If we don't do what staff is requesting, we're going to turn into another Seeger Drive. Am I off base on that?
You're not off base on that. However, Seeger Drive had been decades in the making. I mean, it had been fully developed on both sides. So, I mean, is it a priority today to insert this into our CIP? No, we've got dozens, if not hundreds, of other roads that are in need of repair that have been on our inventory for quite some time. Since this is a new development area, it wouldn't rise to the occasion of kicking a road that's been in need of repair for 20 years, that has been in the city for 80 years, out, in my opinion. So we have no funding mechanism for these types of projects other than to put it in our CIP. One thing that I know there's been some discussion on the council level is to do an assessed project. But once again, the people that are affected by that assessed project get to vote on it, and it takes a majority to be able to do an assessed street project. And I don't believe that that would be a successful thing for people to want to be assessed a fairly significant portion of improvements to a road.
I know we've got a very complex issue in front of us, and I know we as a council had other discussion about how to proceed on something comparable to this in other areas of the city. And so that I'm not further confusing it, my biggest concern is that if we don't get started somewhere on the development up here, at some point, we are going to turn this into Seeger Drive, where we're going to have a country road basically established on a very heavily used city street, and with all the truck traffic and everything that's going down a county road style, that's my major concern. So I'm still waiting for a motion to see what we can do about this, but I think we as a council we need to address this issue, but in the long term, we need to address the bigger picture issue that has to deal with it, so you can do your development and proceed, and so the other people along Dias Avenue can proceed. But right now, the water is very murky as far as being able to envision what's going to be taking place up there on Dias Avenue. So I need a little more time to process what you're suggesting here, and so at this point, I'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. Nordstrom. I just want to say real quick that Dane brought up a lot of ideas that I think are worthy of vetting. However, none of those items are in place right now. Correct. So we need to look at his item as it's been brought forward and see what we might be able to do. Mr. Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And there's no motion on the floor.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask him a question before I make a motion. So, okay. Mr. Boomsma, I want you to develop this area, just so you know where I'm coming from. I want it to happen. I'm glad that you're going to invest out there. Mr. Tech brought up the idea of an assessment down the road. If the other side were to develop at some point, would you be open to doing an assessment at that point for your half?
Yes, I would be.
Okay.
As far as I know, other than maybe the assessment that Dale suggested, there's no other mechanism other than a tax increment district or financing that would allow me to put in the entire road but only get benefit of half of it. I mean, if you're bordering half of it, sorry.
Right. We were talking about some ideas on how to do that. And obviously, we have a lot of other areas, but I'm looking at my notes here. So I think if you're willing to do that, we might. I have to really frame a motion yet. I can't place one yet since I've already asked a question. But you are open to working on some sort of deal where you'll pay your assessment should that time come. That's kind of where we're at, so you can get started. That's
correct.
Right.
Whatever's proportionate. I mean, I'm kind of stuck with the bag for some of the future, or for some of the stuff that's already existing as well, causing all the truck traffic that Richie's talking about, and that's only going to get worse, especially with the asphalt plant more than likely being built out there.
Yeah.
But I'll reiterate, we've missed an opportunity. We had a developer less than a year ago in here trying to take that same property and subdivide it into industrial and residential. Now we have a asphalt plant going in a 40-acre parcel. That's going to be there for a long time.
Yeah.
Instead of having that property that's valuable to the city, within close to the city limits, that's going to be a 40-acre parcel, probably not annexed until he's forced to annex. So we're just missing opportunity, I feel, there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'll yield for now.
Again, I think a lot of fair points have been brought up. One thing I've always discouraged is trying to arrange a deal from the dais. I think it's an unnecessary use of airtime and staff time. what I would suggest is that you take the time to send this to council without recommendation, with the caveat that somebody will be in touch with Mr. Boomsma to talk this out a little bit more so that something can be just more cohesive for Monday night. If that's amenable, I would certainly entertain a motion to that effect. Alderwoman Drew.
I move to send item number 20 to council without recommendation.
A motion and a second to send this to council without recommendation. Is there any further discussion?
I got one thing. I was actually going to, oh, sorry.
And if anyone has the question for Mr. Boomsma, you're welcome to allow him time to speak.
Please.
I was just going to ask that it was continued because I'm actually not able to come on Monday night. And so that may buy us some time to get together too.
Oh, excellent. So we can just, who made the motion? Just strike your motion and then make a new one. Public Works should be fine then.
Retract my previous motion and make a substitute motion to take this to the next Public Works meeting without recommendation.
Or just continue it to the next Public Works meeting would be fine.
Okay, continue to the next Public Works meeting, okay.
All right, so I do have a motion. Is that okay with the seconder? Okay, it's okay with the seconder to move this to the next Public Works meeting on a continuation. Any further discussion? Richie?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I can get together with your engineers as well, or architects, or whatever your professionals that are involved with this as well, so I'd like to visit with them some more in that conversation. So, thank you.
Alderwoman Drew.
Madam Chair, should we have a date on this so staff is clear as to when we're going to revisit?
I believe they have the date for the next Public Works meeting, so.
What is that date? June 13th? So the next date that we'll revisit this is June 13th, everyone.
All right,
Thank you.
once more, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. This item will be carried to the next Public Works Committee meeting. I would entertain now a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn by Solomon, second by Nordstrom. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. We're adjourned, everybody. Thank you.